An Indian Pilgrim, Chapter 4 at School, Part 1. I was nearing my fifth birthday, and when I was told I would be sent to school, I do not know how other children have felt in similar circumstances, but I was delighted to see your elder brothers and sisters dress and go to school day after day and be left behind at home simply because you are not big enough, not old enough, is a galling experience. At least so I had felt, and that is why I was overjoyed. It was to be a red letter day for me. At long last, I was going to join the grown up, respectable folks who did not stay at home except on holidays. We had to start at about 10 a.m. because the classes commenced exactly at 10 a.m. Two uncles of about the same age as myself were also to be admitted along with myself. When we were all ready, we began to run towards the carriage which was to take us to school. Just them, as ill luck would have it, I slipped and fell. I was hurt, and with a bandage round my head, I was ordered to bed. The rumbling of the carriage wheels grew fainter in the distance. The lucky ones had gone, but there I lay with darkness staring me in the face and my fond hopes dashed to the ground. 24 hours later, I found solace. Ours was a missionary school meant primarily for the European and Anglo-Indian boys and girls with a limited number of seats, 15% for Indians. All our brothers and sisters had joined this school, so I did. I do not know why our parents had selected this school, but I presume it was because we would master the English language better and sooner there than cliche here. And knowledge of English had a premium in those days. I still remember that when I went to school, I had just learnt the English alphabet and no more. How I managed to get along without being able to speak a word of English beats me now. I have not yet forgotten one of my first attempts at English. We had been given slate pencils and told to sharpen them before trying to write. Mine was done better than that of my uncle, so I pointed that out to our teacher by saying, Rarendra Mott, I sure, and thought I had talked in English. Our teachers were Anglo-Indians, mostly ladies, with the exception of the headmaster and headmistress, Mr. and Mrs. Young, who had come out of England. Most of our teachers we did not fancy. Some, like Mr. Young, we feared, though we respected, for he was too liberal with his cane. Some, like Mrs. Cadogan, we tolerated. Others, like Mrs. S, we positively hated and would cry hurrah if she ever absented herself. Mrs. Young we liked, but Mrs. Sarah Lawrence, who was our first teacher in the infant class, we loved. She had such a sympathetic understanding of the child's mind that we were irresistibly drawn towards her. But for her, I doubt if I would have got on so easily at a time when I was unable to express myself in English. Though the majority of the teachers and pupils were Anglo-Indians, the school was based on the English model and run on English lines. As far as Indian condition would permit, There were certain things we did learn there which we would have missed in Indian schools. There was not that unhealthy emphasis on studies which obtains in Indian schools. Outside studies, more attention was given to deportment, neatness, and punctuality than is done in an Indian school. In the matter of studies, the students received more individual attention at the hands of their teachers, and daily work was done more regularly and systematically than is possible in an Indian school. The result was practically no preparation was needed when an examination had to be faced. Moreover, the standard of English taught was much higher than that of Indian schools. But after giving due consideration and credit to all this, I doubt if I should today advise an Indian boy to go to such a school. Though there was a order and system in the education and that was imparted, the education itself was hardly adapted to the needs of Indian students. Too much importance was attached to the teaching of a Bible, and the method of teaching it was unscientific as it was uninteresting. We had to learn our Bible lessons by heart whether we understood anything or not, as if we were so many priests memorizing the sacred text. It would be no exaggeration for me to say that though we were taught the Bible day in day out and for 7 long years, I came to like the Bible for the first time several years later when I was in college. There is no doubt that the curriculum was so framed as to make us as English in our mental makeup as possible. We learnt much about the geography and history of Great Britain, but proportionally little about India. When we had to negotiate Indian names, we did so as if we were foreigners. We started our Latin delications bonus bona bonum rather early and did not have to be bothered about our Sanskrit deletions Gaza, Gajo, Gaja till we had left the PE school. When it came to music, we had to train our ears to do re mi fa and not to sa re ga ma. The readers contain stories and annextions from English history or fairy tales which are current in Europe, and there was not a word in them of Indian origin. Needless to add, no Indian language was taught, and so we neglected our mother tongue along together until we joined an Indian school. It would be wrong to conclude from the above that we were not happy at school. On the contrary, during the first few years, we were not conscious at all that education imparted was not suited to Indian conditions. We eagerly learnt whatever came our way and fell completely in line with the school system as other pupils did. The school had a reputation for turning out well behaved boys and girls, and we tried to live up to it. Our parents, I think, we were on the whole satisfied with our progress. With the school authorities, our stock was high because the members of our family were generally at the top in whichever class they happened to be. Sports naturally came in for some amount of attention, but not as much as one would expect in a school run on English lines. That was probably due to the fact that our headmaster was not much as of a sportsman himself. He was unique personalities in many ways and strong-willed, and the stamp of his character was visible everywhere within the premises of the school. He was a stern discipliner and a great stickler for good behavior. In the progress report, marks were given not only for the different subject but also for conduct, deportment, neatness, punctuality. No wonder, therefore, that the boys and girls turned out were well mannered. For misbehavior or indiscipline, boys were liable to be flogged with a cane, but only two of the teachers had this authority: the headmaster and his worthy spouse. Mr. Young had several idiosyncrasies. However, many were the jokes we would have at his expense. He had an elder brother, a bachelor, and a missionary with a venerable beard who was exceedingly fond of children and would love to play with them. To distinguish our headmaster from his elder brother, we nicknamed him Young Young, the latter being called Old Young. Mr. Young was very sensitive to cold, and even on a warm day he would shut the windows lest the draught should come in. He would frequently warn us about the risk of catching cold and getting cholera therefrom. If he ever felt out of sorts, he would take such a stiff dose of quinine as would make him almost deaf. After he had lived 20 years in the country, he could speak hardly a word in the local dialect and never cared to go in for sightseeing or touring. If the caretaker forgot to put something on his table, Mr. Young would ring for him, point to the thing wanted, but unable to scold him in the local dialect, would content himself with glaring at him and then muttering, "All this ought to have been done before." If a messenger brought in a letter and Mr. Young wanted to ask him to wait, he would run up to his wife, get the correct words from her, and go on repeating them till he was able to come out and throw them at the man. With all this, our headmaster was a man who bore himself with dignity and poise and commanded our respect. Though it was tinged with fear, our headmistress was a motherly lady who was universally liked, and I must say that there was never any attempt to influence unduly our social and religious ideas. Things went on smoothly for some years, and we seemed to have fitted in our milieu splendidly. But gradually there appeared a rift within the lute. Something happened which tended to differentiate us from our environment. Was it the effect of local causes, or was it the echo of larger political disturbances? That is a poser I shall not answer for the present. To some extent, this differentiation was inevitable, but what was not inevitable was the conflict that arose out of it. We had been living in two distinct worlds. As our consciousness developed, we began to realize slowly that these two worlds did not always match. This was, on the one hand, the influence of family and society, which was India. There was another world, another atmosphere, which where we spent most of our working days, which was not England, of course, but a near approach to it. We were told that because we were Indians, we could not sit for scholarship examinations like primary schools and middle examination schools. And though in our annual examination many of us were topping the class, Anglo-Indian boys could join the volunteer corps and shoulder a rifle, but we could not. A small incident like this began to open our eyes to the fact that as Indians we were a class apart. Though we belong to the same institution, then there would be occasional quarrels between the English and Indian boys, which would finish up with a boxing bout in which sympathies would be mobilized along racial lines. The son of a very high Indian official who was a fellow student would organize matches between Indian and Europeans at his place, and those of us who could play well would join either side. I can also remember that we Indian boys talking among ourselves would sometimes say that we were fed up with the Bible and that for nothing in the world would be ever change our religion. Then there came new regulation of the Calcutta University making Bengali a compulsory subject for the matriculation, intermediate and degree examination, and introducing other changes in matriculation curriculum. We were soon made to realize that the curriculum of the PE school did not suit us and that unlike the other boys we would have to begin anew the study of Bengali and Sanskrit when we joined an Indian school in order to prepare for the matriculation examination. Last but not least, there was the influence of my elder brothers who had already left our school and were preparing for the matriculation, intermediate and degree examination who spoke to us at home of a different world in which they moved about. It would be wrong to infer from the above that I was in revolt against my school environment after I had been there some years. I was there for 7 years from 1902 to 1908 and was to all intents and purposes satisfied with my surroundings. The disturbing factor refers to the above were passing incidents which did not affect the even tenor of our life. Only towards the end did I have a vague feeling of unhappiness, of maladaptation to my environment, and a strong desire to join an Indian school where, so I thought, I would feel more at home. And strangely enough, when in January 1909 I shook hands with our headmaster and said goodbye to the school, the teachers and the students, I did so without any regret, without a momentary pang. At the time, it was quite impossible for me to understand what had gone wrong with me. Only from this distance of time and with the help of an adult mind can I now analyze some of the factors that had been at work. So far as the studies were concerned, my record during this period was satisfactory because I was usually at the top. But as I did badly in sports and did not play any part in the bouts that took place, and as studies did not have the importance which they have usually in an Indian school, I came to cherish a poor opinion of myself. The feeling of insignificance, of diffidence to which I have referred before continued to haunt me. Having joined the lowest standard, I had probably got into the habit of looking up to others and of looking down upon myself. Considering everything, I should not send an Indian boy or girl to such a school now. The child will certainly suffer from a sense of maladaptation and from consequent unhappiness, especially if he or she is of a sensitive nature. I should say the same of the practice of sending Indian boys to public schools in England which prevailed and still prevails. In certain aristocratic circles in India. For the same reason, I strongly condemn the move taken by certain Indians to start Indian school run by English teacher on the lines of English public schools. It is possible that some boys, for example, those who are mentally extrovert, may not suffer from a feeling of maladaptation and may feel quite happy in such environment, but introvert children are bound to suffer, and in that event the reaction against the system and all it stands for is bound to be hostile. Apart from this psychological consideration, a system of education which ignores Indian conditions, Indian requirements, and Indian history and sociology is too unscientific to condemn itself to any rational support. The proper psychological approach for a cultural rapprochement between the East and the West is not to force English education on Indian boys when they are young, but bring them into close personal contact with the West and when they are developed, so that they can judge for themselves what is good or what is bad in the East and in the West.